And then we're off. Okay, so we're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Lions Lounge Lockdown, episode 68. Matt Smith, how are you, mate?
How are we? I'm not too bad. Thanks for having me on, Dan. Appreciate it, mate. I'm good.
Finally managed to pin you down.
I know. I said to you before, I'm usually not this unreliable. I promised it, but yeah, I feel like we've been going back and forth for some time trying to get a date in the diary. But between the Euros and now father of 2, and various bits and pieces, we've finally got around to it. So I'm glad we can have it.
Do you know what? I've quite enjoyed that though, because I've ended up what I will say from the start is that you seem very into Millwall, and I'm not just saying that. Like, we've been having chats about what results and players, and so we've sort of. I won't say you'll call me a friend right now, but we've been having plenty.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I've just got a very strong affinity for the club. Really, I think it's probably the one result I probably look for first. I think a lot of people ask that question. Is like when you finish a game or whatever, what's the first result you go on your Sky Sports app? For me, it's always been Millwall. I don't know why. I played for plenty of other clubs, but it always be probably the group that I was closest to. I think it's changed a little bit maybe since my day, but there's still quite a few lads in there. I was actually at the PFA Awards last night and was chatting to McCauley Langstaff, and he was like, "You were with a few of these lads, weren't you?" And I was like, I was actually naming them out loud. I was like, "Yeah, actually, I was with loads of them still." But yeah, love the club, so I'm always looking out for them.
Yeah, listen, first and foremost, mate, as I say, I've said it to you already off screen, but congratulations on a brilliant career. You announced your retirement yesterday after over 600 games, was it?
Something like that, yeah. I think 550 odd in the EFL, and then probably another 80, 90 in non-league over the years. But yeah, definitely north of 600. So since I started, so yeah, it's been a bit of a weird but wonderful journey.
I won't lie, it's great timing for me for you to announce it yesterday and then come on the show the next day.
I know, yeah. It wasn't planned like that. I think I kind of knew I was going to make that announcement probably a while ago. There was no real rhyme or reason why I decided yesterday, but it just felt like the season was started. It was probably, I was getting quite a few calls from different clubs, and the longer I left it, the lower the level. I started getting a lot of like Conference North teams like really like thinking like, could he fancy a bit of part time? But no, it was there was no real reason for it.
There was big calls yesterday on social media for bring him back. He can do a job.
Hey, I floated a text message to Chopper, but it didn't get a nibble, unfortunately. But no,
he's had a busy week making transfers. Maybe
exactly. He's got different priorities, which I understand. But no, I love Chopper a bit, so no, it was only a bit of a jokey one.
You said then that you was at the PFA Awards and you saw McCauley Langstaff over the course of the summer. Obviously, in between us not getting this done and now getting it done, you said, "Oh, you just saw McCauley Langstaff." I went toe to toe with him for the Golden Boot, and you're happy to talk about what sort of player he is. Millwall fans obviously not got a strong look at him yet because he's not been around it long. But you said you and him went toe to toe for that Golden Boot.
Yeah, I went toe to toe with him for a long time, and then he kind of just ran away with it a bit towards the end. He got sort of 4 or 5 goals towards the back end of the season in quick succession, so kind of ran away with it. But no, really impressed with him. I think he'd be a great signing. Has a lot of different qualities that I certainly saw when he was playing for Notts County. He lovely ability on the ball, but could sort of drop in cute pockets, pick up the ball, so had a little bit of pace that could go in behind, and he was just always a natural finisher. You've seen a lot of his finishes, like in and around the box, poachers finishes, penalties. He just a natural born finisher. So you look at the levels that he's gone from and to. I think I always think when you are a natural finisher like that, and you'll get chances even at the Championship, he'll put them away. So I hope for him, because he seemed like a lovely lad, that he has a good stint at Millwall.
Yeah, let's look forward to him scoring a few goals in. So let's talk now about your Millwall career. Signed by Neil Harris in the summer of 2019. At the time, I remember the club saying that he was a long-term target of us.
Yeah, there'd been a few approaches prior to the actual time I signed. To be honest with you, I think it was always kind of a case of timing. And I mean, the first one was trying to think if it would it have been the Holloway era when I was at Leeds. The first time was at Leeds, but it was in the summer. I'd done well. I'd scored 14 goals or something my first season in the Championship. But again, I had no desire to leave Leeds. I mean, I ended up going to Fulham on deadline day, which was bizarre in itself. But at that time, it was a non-starter that I would go there. And then I think the second time. Actually, I know the second time was when I signed for Fulham. I had a bit of a disaster. I got sent off on my debut. The manager that signed me got sacked a couple of weeks later. A new manager came in, and I wasn't.
Sound like you getting sent off.
No. I got 2 career reds, and unfortunately, the second one was 15 minutes into my Fulham debut, which was a shame. Bit of a touch tackle situation in the middle of the pitch, and that was a disaster start to my time at Fulham. Felix Magath got sacked. Kit Simons come in. I was kind of cast aside, not even on the bench for a while. So kind of looked at that was back in the day when you could do sort of a 93-day loan. It wasn't window to window; you could go anytime.
Right.
And that's what Millwall came in heavy to take me on loan, and I was keen to go. But Fulham put a block on any championship move. It was disappointing because obviously I'd just come out of a good championship season. I'd scored 14 for Leeds, come to Fulham, and then sort of within a few months they were like, "You're either staying or you're going to League One." And I was like, "This doesn't really feel like something that's good for my development, and I don't really feel I've done a lot wrong to warrant this." But anyway, I decided to go to Bristol City in League One and play, and luckily it turned out to be a great move. But yeah, I would have gone to Millwall probably at that time, but for the fact Fulham said no to any championship loan opportunity.
That's ridiculous. Eventually, say you did land at the summer of 2019. That was the season after we bounced into the championship, had one good season, and then followed up. I think he then went out and bought loads of players that summer, and he was one of the first signings. How did he sell the club to you, the gaffer?
He's just such a good human being, isn't he? He's just, he's such on a human level. I just thought, what a great guy. Someone I'd love to work with. Obviously, I think it's like anything. When you meet a manager who really values you, sees your skill set, really values your skill set, I think, especially for me, who's a bit unique, I can be a bit Marmite with a lot of managers because of the way I play and probably the way the team plays when I'm in the team. For him, I was, what he would want in his ideal starting 11. So it was sort of music to my ears. Everything he said about Millwall in terms of like, the ball has to be played forward. We're not, the fans will, want to see attacking football in the final third. So we'll get the ball forward as quick as we can. Yeah, we get wingers, direct wingers. Obviously, signed Conor Mahoney at the time, who I thought would be a good foil for me on one side. Obviously, he sold Jed Wallace to me on the other side. That he was really selling me everything that a lot, which I did actually experience. Obviously, predominantly under Gary Rowett, but it's those types of things that he sold to me, I experienced, and that's probably why I love my time so much.
102 games, 21 goals ish. Moving on to your first ever goal, away at West Brom.
Yep, West Brom.
With the yellow shirt in front of the fans.
You come off the bench. Yeah. I think I started. Did I start the first game? We won 1-0, didn't we? And then did we go there? Was it Preston? Jed scored, and then the second game, I think he said I was going to start the first few games at home. He was kind of, West Brom were kind of one of the high flying, or tipped to be one of the high flying teams, possession based. So come off the bench for that one. But I was happy. I think it was just like ball fell nicely to me in the box and got me in a bit. So it's always nice, especially when you go to a new club, to get off the mark early. He kind of breaks that duck and kind of you feel a lot more at ease once you've got kind of one under your belt, I think. It was a good moment.
And you followed it up with a goal in your next game as well at home to Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah, no, for sure. I remember that one as well. That header back post. It was a good season. I think I ended up with 14 odd goals or something. It's always nice when you can get a few goals early for sure. The Den was always. I just loved playing there. Loved the fans. I always thought they gave you such a good energy, and I really enjoyed it there. And I think that was probably seen by the number of goals I got at home versus away, maybe.
You mentioned there Conor Mahoney as well. He was our last guest before you, and he absolutely loved playing you. I used to call you the substitution Siamese twins because when you used to come, if it wasn't working or we needed a goal, and Conor Mahoney said he went, I was signed to provide Matt Smith with chances. That's why Neil Harris sold it to me. He said it worked really, really well with the Peria.
100%. Yeah, no, it was. He had such a lovely cross on him, lovely delivery. I remember. I think he crossed the one for for that first one at Sheffield Wednesday. I remember a couple of other nice ones. You just had such a lovely delivery off both feet as well, which isn't overly common. But as a striker, I can assure you, it's nice when you've got a winger that can go both ways, because you can make the same. You can make the same run. You don't have to think, right, he's going to check back, so I'm going to have to reload my run here. I could always just confidently make a run, knowing that he's going to whip it in with either foot, which was quite nice.
You mentioned the dressing room as well at the start, and I know a few bits from inside that dressing room with the likes of Alex Pearce and people like that. It was supposed to be absolutely hilarious every day to day at the training ground.
Yeah, like Pearcey's a one of a kind human being. I don't think there's anyone in English football that I've met that comes close to what he's like as a character. That dressing room was the best I've been in, for sure. For a lot of different reasons, but Pearcey was definitely the catalyst for everything good that went on in that dressing room. He was a real leader, but just a real good person. Very unique. There was a unique kind of atmosphere. I think everyone that came in really bought into it as well. All the new signings and stuff. So in terms of like an environment to be in, it was brilliant. And I think anyone you'd ask from that era would say the same thing.
Yeah, and so the goals kept coming. You scored away against Huddersfield, although it was more of a keeper smashing it against your head. So they all count. And then
absolutely
not long after that, after the away game, we draw 1-1 at Luton. Neil Harris resigns. I always ask people, you've been signed by a gaffer, he was a long-term target, like we said. They said, come in, I want you to do this job and that job, you're going to play for me. And then they leave. What does that feel like as a player?
Yeah, I was a bit gutted. Like I said from the start, I was such a big fan of his, and I loved working with him and stuff. So I was hoping that would have continued longer term for sure. Especially, like I said before, as a player who is a little bit Marmite, to have, it's always a risk then when you go to the open market and you see what manager is going to come in. Is he going to like you? Now, I've had it plenty of times where I've had manager where I'm really their cup of tea. The next one comes in, I'm totally not their cup of tea, and it can be quite difficult. So I was gutted to see him go. But listen, it was hard for me to fully understand because he'd been there so long. But for me, it felt so new and fresh. But for him, it probably did, wane on him the time he'd been at the club and kind of what he was experiencing at that time. I probably couldn't empathise as much as I maybe would have wanted to, just based on the fact that I hadn't been in the building that long. But it was a real sad day because the lads really, really loved him.
Yeah, and then Gary Rowett takes over, of course. I mean, you don't know these things, but I just got the impression that you had a good relationship with Rowett, and he rated you as well.
Yeah, I really liked working under him. I really liked him. I thought he was a really top coach. I had a lot of admiration for him when he came in because I thought I thought he was perfect fit for what we were. If I looked at his previous, take Stoke out of the equation. I say that because I don't think anyone's cracked that conundrum. No. Everyone who's gone into Stoke seems to have failed to some way, shape, or it just seems that something's rotten at the core more than anything. But he'd had so much success everywhere he'd went, whether it be Birmingham or Derby or Burn, and he'd always be able to galvanise teams, and they'd always mount playoff push, and he always kind of came across as a really classy figure and quite cool. I always saw from the outside looking in, and then definitely experienced that working under him. Think he was a good tactician, probably more defence minded than any manager I'd worked for, but I think it worked to our favour in terms of getting results. But he had a real amazing ability of predicting how games would go. So we would always do shape with him on a Thursday and a Friday, and a lot of managers would always talk about, how we're going to set up, how the game's going to unfold. He had a real uncanny ability to really tell you what was going to happen in the game before it happened, and I'd always come away from games and we'd win, and I'd be like, bloody hell, that's exactly how he described it was going to happen on the Thursday or the Friday. He was very good like that. I think he really understood the division. He had so much experience in it, I guess, but I really like working for him.
And your first goal for him, you actually, once again, off the bench, you and Aidan O'Brien, if memory serves me. In the biggest game in Charlton's history, every calendar, every time. What was that like Derby and scoring that late winner?
That was wicked. Yeah, no, that was definitely probably my favourite Millwall experience for sure in terms of the atmosphere. And as a derby goes, it was great. I would have loved to have played in like a West Ham Millwall, I would have absolutely loved that. But I think, next best thing maybe would have been a Charlton derby, and so to get a winner in that was great. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it was absolutely rocking in there that day, no doubt. Moving on to this is where it gets crazy. The final game, although we didn't know it was going to be the final game, the final game before lockdown. Nottingham Forest away. I was there that night as well. 3-0 first half hat trick. We was on fire. First one, you make the run towards the 6-yard box. I think it comes across on the left. You knock it in. The one I want to talk about is the Jason Malumbi, because he thought he scored, didn't he?
And to be honest, if the game wasn't on Sky, I definitely think that goal would have probably gone to him. But I knew it had taken a slight touch of my heel, and I also knew that because it was on Sky, they'd slow it down and they would see it.
Yeah.
I don't think it goes in if it doesn't hit my heel. I think the keeper saves it, or it hits the leg of the defender that was behind me. I think I just take it off path a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just liked the way it unfolded and the fact that Jason did the dance. We'd gone out about 10 days before on a Saturday night in London. I think we were in Monkey House or somewhere in Central, and Jason did that dance kind of out of nowhere. Jay really evolved as a character. When he came in, he didn't say 2 words, and then by the end, he was like not the loudest in the dressing room, but certainly had a real personality. It really shone. I think that when I said to you about the environment and lads bringing the best out of each other, that was one of the things. Jay really bloomed. I think it was a good learning curve for him, but. Yeah, he busted out this mad dance in Monkey House, and the lads were like, "If you score, you have to do that. Like, you have to do it." Like, so he was like, "Okay, I'll do it. I've never scored before, but if I do, I'll do it." And then, sure enough, 10 days later, he scores, or thinks he scored, and does it. Honestly, we're creasing, and I was laughing inside because I knew it would get taken off him as well.
What was that the conversation like half time?
He didn't know. A lot of lads didn't know, because even at the end of the game, when I come in with the ball. I think Gary Rowett was like, "You scored a hat trick, like, do you know what I mean?" And then obviously when then everyone looked it back, and you can really hear that if you put the volume up, you can really hear the noise of the deflection. But I don't think many people actually knew at the time. But yeah, obviously I knew, so it was funny.
God, but he was gutted. I think he did score later that season. I think against Queen's Park Rangers on the last day, and I think that deflected as well.
He did. So, huge deflection with a big loopy one over the goalie. I remember it.
Yeah, so the lockdown hits. I think am I imagining this? Did it stem from the Forest chairman had travelled over or something like that? And that's how it
did.
Yeah,
he was the first one. He was the first one, and then I remember City Arsenal got cancelled, and Arteta got it, I think. And I think that was in the I think when the because he was the Olympiacos owner, wasn't he, the Forest guy? And I think when he got it, everyone was a bit like, "Okay, what's this?" And I remember City Arsenal getting postponed, and then thinking, "Okay, this is a little bit more serious." And then before you know it, it just totally unravelled, didn't it? And then bloody the whole world just went nuts for a while. But yeah, it was crazy.
No. I mean, as people that don't play professional football, obviously if lockdown's on, but maybe you're released, you're still getting to watch the games. But obviously there was no games. What was that like for you as a player? Not only you're not going to work, you're not able to entertain the people, giving them something at least, right? But they can't work, but at least we're playing. What was it like? So obviously, earlier on when I said, what's it like when a manager leaves? You've dealt with that before, but as this, no one had ever dealt with it. What was it like? 3 months, no football?
Very, very weird. I think like the rest of the country, were just confused as to kind of how things were going to play out. I think just taking each week as it come, and everyone was like tuning in at 5 o'clock to see what Boris Johnson had to say and kind of what we could do, what we couldn't do. It was just a mental time. I think even Christ, all the things that happened, it was just, anyone could predict that. So like everyone else, I think it was just more anticipation, hoping that things would ease off so we could get back into something. And then, would we resume the season? No fans, and then obviously the training, the allowances for what we could do training wise got eased off. And then we started doing these weird one-on-one sessions. And obviously I was based up north with my wife, so I was back up the road, doing Zoom sessions, like group Zoom sessions in the garden, doing workouts, and got the Strava was like the biggest app in the country because everyone was doing these runs and recording them. But yeah, it was just really, really bizarre. And then obviously come back. I think we were all buzzing to eventually come back, but just in bizarre circumstances, like bloody cardboard cutouts of fans in the stands. And
right there, crowdies and crowd music. The first game back at the Den against Derby. You scored the first goal.
Yeah. Scored the first goal, scored a header, yeah, and then unfortunately lost that again. Like, I just don't think that happens with a crowd. Like that. That was why, like, I just think our results were a kind of false reflection on kind of probably what would have happened. Like, I don't think Lewis Sibley scores a hat-trick at the Den. I just don't think he does when it's a full crowd. I just don't think that happens. Loads of things I think were kind of unfortunately didn't help us. It was bizarre, especially like the Den is just synonymous with an atmosphere that is incredibly difficult for opposition players to play in. So not having that was like kind of like having a secret weapon taken away from you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Did they? Am I right in saying that they tested it? With the players got an opinion on we should do crowd music or no, we don't like it, sort of thing.
Yeah, there was one player in the whole team that wanted crowd simulated noise, and you're talking to him. So I was the only one. I was the only one. I thought it gave something. I remember we did a vote because ultimately you could choose. Like, so I think maybe a couple of grounds did it. Mostly didn't do it, but I remember us having a vote and everyone put their hands up, and I was like, one guy with my hand up thinking it gave us a little bit of something. Everyone else was like, nah, just get rid of that. Like, no interest. So yeah, there was no noise. So yeah, my vote didn't get very far.
Eventually we got that season done. I think after a couple of breaks, it could have been anyway. The 2020-21 season, 10 starts and 5 goals with 24 appearances off the bench. I think you play as much in that second season.
No, it was, I think, just change of style, really. I was probably the main casualty from change of philosophy a little bit. I think we kind of tried to go a bit more counter-attacking, a little more pace up front. We brought Benicophobe in, Mason Bennett played, Jed started playing up top a lot. You played a 5 at the back a lot. It was like a real change in style, I think, which was probably, I was probably the main kind of victim of the change, which was a big shame. I think after, obviously, a big disappointment for me was coming off the back of like a 14-goal season. That was the biggest shame, was not to be able to capitalise that on and build on that. So no hard feelings. I respected the manager for his. He has to live or die by his decisions. It's the way he wanted to go. I could understand it. If you're going to play that way, I'm definitely not the person you want at the top end of the pitch. My role became more of a kind of more regular starts, probably more regular impact player.
Impact player, yeah. Do you think that? Listen, I'm all for 4-4-2 as much as Neil Harris is and a big striker with someone playing off, and we saw it with, although those both quite big, Cascarino and Sheringham, but Morrison and Gregory. Do you feel like the way football's going, it's sort of the big man's coming out of it a bit now? Do you feel when it's more a Bradshaw who's a lot smaller but maybe quicker and he can get around into the channels, and the strikers aren't strikers anymore? It's a different game, isn't it?
Oh, totally different game. I think the Pep effect has definitely trickled down the leagues for sure. I think even in League Two they try and play that way, which is mental. But yeah, I think the expression "the big man is a dying breed" is probably more now like the big man is a bit of a dead breed. To be honest with you, I think nowadays there's that much emphasis on what you do when you don't have the ball as much when you have it. So kind of in my earlier days of football, everything was about what you do when you have it, how are you going to play, and then there was like a brief bit of analysis on how we'll set up when we don't have the ball. Whereas nowadays it's like almost as much emphasis on like your pressing shape and pressing triggers and how you're going to press when you're off the ball. And there's that much emphasis on where you press from and all the rest of it. It's just not my skill set. I'm not particularly mobile. I can't get around the pitch, especially nowadays. You generally play with one centre forward and one number 9. That striker nowadays has to have a kind of a bit of everything. It has to be a bit mobile, a bit strong, a bit this, a bit that. Whereas, I'm quite one-dimensional, which is effective if you play to it. But if you're not going to play to it, then it can be a bit redundant, I suppose.
You still scored 5 goals though off 10 starts in that second season. Anything that stands out goals-wise in that season?
Was that the Bournemouth?
Yes.
Bournemouth away. Yeah, that was probably one that I can remember. I'm trying to think when fans actually came back. Did we play a whole season without fans, or did they come back? Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. We played a whole season, didn't we? Because the return was QPR away, the first game of the next
That's
season. Is that right?
Yeah.
So we did a whole season. Yeah. So that was weird. That was weird. Yeah. The getting changed and like, oh bloody hell, getting changed in like weird places around stadiums. I remember Reading.
I remember they used to bring the away team underneath the
yeah,
scoreboard.
like Charlton, we were in like a director's box. Reading, I remember getting changed in like a janitor's closet on the concourse. It was freezing. Weird places, like random rooms, like in stadiums. It was strange. It was the whole season, wasn't it? So yeah, Bournemouth away, I remember. Reading away, I remember. Those were good goals.
First season was stop-start, and then the next season actually started a lot later, didn't it? Because of the delay to the previous season. It was just, I'll be honest, like even research-wise, whatever, it's all sort of blurs into one a little bit, doesn't it?
Trying to piece it together, it really does blur into one for sure. It does, because like you say, we were playing games in July. Do you know what I mean? So I think, we were literally playing games in July, weren't we? Which was crazy. But thinking back now, it's really hard to actually picture, because it all just feels like one gigantic blur of football, really.
You was you were at the club then for the QPR game on the first game of the season.
Yeah, that was nuts. That was nuts. That was brilliant.
Yeah,
that was crazy. Yeah, unreal. That was a proper goosebump moment for getting that energy again. I think it's much of a relief that kind of we're sensing some normality again. We'd been like caged animals for such a long time. To get that relief was brilliant. And then obviously it was, when Jed scored that goal, we did that bloody airplane celebration the full length of the pitch. It was incredible, and just like, I think a big joyous moment for everyone. Yeah, I think it was more symbolic of life than football, probably just that moment, really.
100%. Well, that was your last season at the club, and so I think you left sort of, was it January or something like that? But
I left January. To be honest with you, but it was kind of my wish. My wife was heavily pregnant. I was angling for a move north. Once I kind of realised that my kind of time was probably done at the club, my desire was to move north. I kind of was hoping that someone would come in the January, and then Salford offered me a brilliant package for 2.5 years, took me to 35, be around, be in the family home. I moved, I think, on the 17th of January. My son was born on the 22nd, so it couldn't have been more perfect from that respect. I think that was my principal motivation, really. So I was disappointed to obviously drop a couple of divisions. I had a couple of bits of interest at the time from Portsmouth. I have to really think about it. But Portsmouth was definitely one. My desire was to be with my family, and I sort of wanted to prioritise that, really.
Of course,
And Gary Rowett was really understanding. He didn't stand in my way. He kind of made life very easy for me to make that happen, which is I was very grateful for.
If you was, I know obviously your family comes first, but if you was still in the team every week and flying, do you think that might have weighed up?
Yeah, I wouldn't. For sure. Yeah, for sure. If it was probably my first season of experience, I think I would have naturally stuck it out. I think it was just because I'd had a season of not playing, and then probably half a season again of not playing much. It was one of those where I just thought the writing was on the wall a little bit, and I'd rather kind of go out when some semblance of good form wasn't that long ago, i.e. the first season. And anyone looking in could probably see why he's not played that much football starting wise, regular minutes for kind of a season and a half. The longer I left it, I kind of felt as though that 14-goal season would probably been a bit of a distant memory. So I thought January was a good time, all things considered.
It's good that you're saying, but you speak highly of Gary Rowett, and even though you wasn't getting in as much as you'd like, it's difficult for any manager to keep a player that's not playing happy.
Really difficult. And listen, I've had plenty of managers that haven't played me. Like I said, I've had revolving door managers at certain places, and ones that loved me, ones that I probably wasn't their cup of tea. But one thing I always liked about Gary was that he was very respectful, and he had a real nice way of explaining his decision making, because he was always very complimentary of me whenever I was in the room. He was always very complimentary of my skill set and very respectful of what I can do for the team. It just might not have married up to his plan for the weekend. He was never it was never like a smoke screen with him, or telling you one thing but you felt like he didn't really mean it. Like, I've had that before, where players can see right through that. They're like, radar for BS is like, yeah, it's pretty obvious. Yeah. Whereas for him, he was always very genuine with it, which I kind of respected. And as much as I might not have agreed with it, for sure, there were times where I thought I would have been better suited, or I was on form, or I always kind of respected it, I think, and it was always that mutual respect.
Oh, nice. Well, you did have time before you left to haunt Nottingham Forest one last time. Scored the winner up there again. Was that a team? Did you have a team or a ground where you always felt you got joy?
Yeah, Birmingham, Gillingham, and probably Forest. Probably my three. I think I've scored a good 7 or 8 goals against either team. So yeah, there was always my three. I always thought Birmingham, I've always had their number for whatever reason. Gillingham again the same, and Nottingham Forest, Cardiff maybe too. I think you always have those teams. I don't know why, whatever. And then I've had teams that I just don't do well against ever. They must think I'm terrible. Do you know what I mean? Like Brentford, gosh, they're like, I've literally like, awful experiences against Brentford, or Bournemouth, for instance, the same. I got the equaliser that time, but I've had some stinkers against them too. So yeah, it's weird the way football works like that. Some teams you kind of go into thinking, bloody hell, I've done well against them before, and for whatever reason it just clicks on. I think if you ask any centre forward, they'll always have a couple of teams where they've done well.
I bet the wish is always to have more teams you've done well against than more teams you had a stinker against.
Big time. But yeah, there's definitely a few on the stinker scale as well where I thought never really done particularly well against them.
Forest must have thought, we might as well go out and buy this guy. Jesus, if he does some scoring goals against us.
I know. I had a few tweets from off the back of the statement, from Forest fans saying they're delighted with my decision, and same with Gillingham actually. But it's funny the way fans don't forget. It's funny.
No, it's very, very true. So when we was originally going to do this interview, it was supposed to be the day after the anniversary of the passing of John Berylson. So obviously I was going to ask you about what he was like as a chairman, obviously absolute Millwall icon. But yes, obviously that was about 3 weeks, a month ago maybe. So it's in my notes. So I just thought I'd ask you about your thoughts on JB and what a great figure he was for the club.
Yeah, it was just such a tragedy. Yeah, I was absolutely devastated when I was really, really upset when it happened. And when I heard the news, it was such like I think as well with kind of, I've been fortunate enough. I've had some really good owners that I've worked for, and ones that I've good like working relationship, but also personal relationship with. But John was someone I had a real personal relationship with because of my degree. So he was always a larger than life character. Loved talking to players, engaging with the players. Whenever he'd be, in the change room or at the training grounds, I had loads of nice conversations with him over the years. But I went to start my MBA during my time at Millwall, a master's degree essentially. But he had also done an MBA. I think he'd done it at Harvard back in his student years. And when you do an MBA, a lot of what you're doing essentially is analysing your existing company. So it's basically for senior executives to kind of jump up the corporate ladder a bit quicker, so to speak. They want to go to the top of the tree. They do an MBA, and it's like seen as an advanced qualification. So the difference was when I took it, the business that I'm analysing is Millwall, and as a player, you don't really get exposed to much information like you would if you were an executive at whatever corporate you were coming from. So when I explained to John what I was doing, he like almost took it as his like personal crusade to like help me. And he pretty much opened the cabinet for me for any sort of, I was like dissecting all sorts of information that I really shouldn't have probably had access to, probably just short of the player's contracts. I kind of could see everything, which was I was in a real privileged position. But he would always follow up with me all the time, like give me hours, and I'm talking hours of his time to help me with my assignments or whatever, and also kind of explain things to me. Mark Fairbrother, who's back in at Millwall, he was the finance director at the time, introduced me to him. I had lots of conversations with him, particularly about accounting, because a lot of this stuff was really new to me. He kind of really spent a lot of his time, which I'm sure is precious given how successful and busy he is. So I had a lot of hours on the phone to him from Boston. So my phone bills were through the roof for that period of time. He was such a lovely, lovely man, like real genuine, really had he had the best intentions. Like he just wanted the best for everyone, including Millwall as a club. And like even between Steve, John, the way they worked together, and I could even see it, like, you know, even in what I was reading, like what you were sending me, I was like, wow, like Millwall is so well run. Do you know what I mean? I didn't have a load to compare it to. It's not like I've got all the information from other football clubs, but I was looking at it, I was like, this is like so well run. This is so by the book. Like everything's in order, everything's clean. Like it just seemed to me like a really well run football club. Do you know what I mean? It looked very, very neat and tidy. And then I even think back to like COVID and the way that he treated, you know, between Steve and John, the way they treated the staff and the players. Like, you know, as players, you obviously hear the horror stories from like so many other clubs. You know, they're getting their wages deferred and staff are getting laid off and this, that, and the other. But it couldn't have been more immaculately run at the club in terms of that time and what they were doing for everyone around the football club. It was, really special people, and I include Steve in that as well, because it was really evident to me. Kind of, we probably had a little sneak peek into the inner sanctum. Like, one, very well run. Two, just genuinely good people. So I think we lost a good one with John for sure.
Hopefully his son carries on his legacy and his good work. It's good that you say that as well, because I know at times some of our fans will get frustrated going, why are we not going out and spending this money and blah, blah, blah. But you've only got to look at the clubs that have done it and they've ended up coming down. Then they've got big numbers on the books, capitulate, they end up getting double relegated and things like that. So he's got the best club interest at Arsenal.
Oh, for sure. For sure. You know, spending within their means was really obvious, but also assembling what was quite. I mean, the fact that I think it goes under the radar. I mean, we were probably like a bottom 4, 5, 6 budget, I'm guessing, and to go in and be just regular playoff, it was almost expected of Gary Rowett by the time he left to be in and around the playoffs. That was the expectation because of the bar he'd set. He kind of took it to a next level. And that's testament to him to have assemble a squad off, bottom end budget, but get the right characters in, get us playing a certain way that wasn't too complicated that the lads could buy into, and like I said, to be expected to be in and amongst sort of top 10, top 8 as a group. We thought we could have got the playoffs in them years. So testament to him for sure, and the club as a whole, recruitment and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I've said it at the start, but you do genuinely, like you text me today, I said something about potentially down. You said, who we signed, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like you have a genuine love for the club. You said that you watched both games so far this season as well.
Yeah, I watched my first ever time I'd not been at a club on an opening day of a season. I had about 50 games I could have watched on this new Sky Plus channel. But I watched Watford Millwall, which was a big shame. I thought once I jumped up when Duncan scored the equaliser, and then he went down the other end and got a bit of a sicken of that. But I'm always keen to follow the lads, and I'm still very close to the likes of Bradders and Sav and Lenny and lads still in that dressing room. They're good guys.
Yeah, good. So I always finish with asking 2 questions. First up is, if you could pick one standout memory from your time at the club, what would it be?
I mean, obviously, I'd probably pinpoint the Charlton goal. I think that was probably just pipped the Forest night for me, just probably because of what the fixture meant to the fans. I think, it's such an iconic fixture. If you could, pick any one, I'd probably pick that. But if I could relive any kind of experience, it probably would be just sort of the day to day with Piercy and co at the training ground. I think every day was just like a funny day. Like, you'd always leave with a smile on your face. It was just that type of environment. So I think on reflection, it was kind of those days at training ground were brilliant.
Did you sorry, this is another question that just popped into my mind. Did you ever have any funny interactions with Millwall fans? Or
my one memory that jumps out now, you just asked that question, didn't actually involve me, but my best mate was in Capri in Italy on holiday, on a group holiday, and with some mates, and they were at lunch and they were at a big long table, and there was a table next to them, and there was a guy with a Millwall polo on, and it had lions on the back, and my mate was like, bloody hell, I'm in Capri and there's a old fella with a Millwall polo on. So my mate just went Mill like that, just to see if he'd get a response. Turn around, it was John. John Berylson was wearing the polo, And they had a big chat about me. He said, "Oh, my mate's Matt Smith. Went to uni together, and he was, I signed Matt." And they took a picture and they sent it to me. So if you're trying to think of like an interaction, it'd probably be that stands out, I think.
Oh, mate, that's brilliant. I weren't expecting
of all the places, no, I didn't expect it at all. When I seen the selfie of John and my mate at lunch, I didn't expect to be this white polo on, this big white Millwall polo, repping Millwall out in Capri, which I thought was quite cool.
That's brilliant. The last question I ask is always the same. And when I asked Conor Mahoney this, he put you in his free because he said, Matt Smith for the contacts. That was his actual words. So if you could go out tomorrow with 3 of your old teammates from Millwall, you can only take 3 with you you do what you like, night out, game of golf, whatever. Which 3 you taking?
Jed, Piercy, Willow. Those are the 3 that we would sit next to each other on the train on away trips, and it was always a good laugh. I used to always enjoy. We used to take the train everywhere in Millwall, so we'd always plot up on the table with the 4 seats, and it would always be me and Piercy, Jed and Willow every time, and it would always be a good conversation. So probably they would be my guys. But to be honest with you, I'd have a laugh with all of them. We had a real good click. But those are my immediate guys for sure.
Funny, Conor Mahoney said you, Willow, and Piercy. He said you for the contacts. You can get them in anywhere they want to go. Piercy for the fine. And if he wants to take 5 and have a nice chill beer in the chat, he's got Willow there.
Exactly. He's got a good mix there for sure. He's made a good call, Conor, there for sure.
Brilliant. Listen, thanks for your time, mate. Really, really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, mate. No, I had a great time chatting. Thanks for having me on.
Top man. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, pal.